And you as well, at long last, eh?
Yep, we've been trying to have this meeting for months now. I think going all the way back to July last year, maybe.
I know, it's just, can't believe how time has flown.
I know, it just goes so fast. So it's great to have you here. What I'm excited about being able to speak to you and to get to share this with other parents is I want to know everything about smart processing and Fast Forward. And let's start from the beginning. What is the thing that drives you to promote Fast Forward?
Well, the Fast Forward in particular, well, as well as the other programs that I provide, have the potential to be completely life-changing for a child, a student, whether they're young or old. It can be just totally life-changing for them in a positive way. They can end up coming off SEN registers, they can start making friends on the playground, where they might not have been able to do so before. All of their social communications are going to be vastly improved. Their academic performance is going to be vastly improved. And as I say, it can be absolutely life-changing.
Wow. So let's just backtrack a bit, because you said they can come off the SEN register with this.
It's possible.
Explain, what do you mean? So you have a child with SEN, they're on the register, they have an EHC plan or whatever they have. We're using the Fast Forward programme, their name can be removed from that register because they no longer require the things that they needed to be on that register.
That's right. They no longer meet the requirements for they just don't meet those requirements anymore. Everything has been lifted up, and they can access the curriculum normally, and they're perfectly fine in the classroom. Don't need one-to-one support, don't need to be taken out of the class for extra tuition. This is what can happen. It doesn't happen for every student who does the programme. We need to make that clear. It does depend on the individual and how they're actually affected, how severely their difficulties are. But I've seen this happen many a time where a child has been really, really struggling in school and they've done Fast Forward, and they might also have done the listening programme and a movement programme. And certainly the three combined together are hugely, hugely powerful. It's just absolutely, the results are just, well, they're just amazing at times.
Wow.
And even if a child has very, very severe difficulties, we can make improvements, and just those very sort of slight improvements can be life-changing for that student, because they can now perhaps process speech just that little bit faster, which can just make things much, much easier. It may still be a problem for them, but even just increasing the processing of speech just that little bit faster, even that is enough to really, really help that child. It's amazing.
Brilliant. So what you're saying can sound like music to parents' ears. Really, there's a programme that can help my child, whether they're dyslexic, ADHD, autistic, depending on the level of the child, but there's a program out there they can access that not only is going to help with their processing speed and help them with their development and their academic improvements. There is a program out there. Why on earth did I not hear about this when my son was diagnosed? I don't understand. I've got my diagnosis. Why is nobody telling me there is this out there?
That is a very good question, Iffy. We do try our best to get knowledge of this programme out into the wider world. I think quite a lot of people are quite sceptical about it, because there's a lot of programmes out there where people say, yes, this is going to completely change your child's life. Everything is going to be much, much better after they've done this. It's an American programme. The accent on there is American, and some people don't like that. But we find that because we're training the underlying cognitive skills, that American accent has no effect whatsoever on the overall results. And it is generally being better known. We do get an awful lot more inquiries from schools these days, a lot of inquiries from schools wanting to implement this programme into their curriculum. And so it is getting out there. I mean, obviously in America, they have whole schools use the program. Australia is a very, very big user of the program. Places like Singapore and various other countries over in that part of the world, again, very, very big users. And we're getting there. I get more and more inquiries from schools every day about how can we implement this into our curriculum. Because they're hearing about the improvements. Educational psychologists are getting to know about it. So they may be recommending it for particular children that they've seen. It just depends on the professionals that you end up being involved with as to whether or not they've heard of the programme.
Absolutely. So basically what you're saying is England, we're a bit behind. So places like America, Singapore, Australia, they have schools dedicated to it. It's integrated into their schooling system. It's quite well known. But here in the UK, we're a little bit slow, a little bit behind, aren't really aware of this, only just starting to look into it. So for me as a parent, I actually found the programme via Canada. So I was Googling and found it that way. And I was just so grateful when I saw that there was somebody here in the UK who had the programme, who I could speak to at my time, because obviously Australia 11 hours behind us, America 9 hours, whatever. Someone I can speak to who sounds like me, who understands the UK educational system. It was the best thing. When I found you, I did a little party in my living room. I was so wow, this is amazing. And as a parent of a child with autism, I will try everything. I will.
That's it.
I wouldn't be so stupid to not try something that could potentially be the thing. Now, people say, oh, there's no cure to autism. We're not talking about cures, are we?
No, we're not. We're not talking about cures whatsoever. We're talking about improvements of underlying cognitive skills. There's no cures for any of these conditions, whether it's dyslexia, ADHD, autism, or whatever it might be, dyspraxia, verbal dyspraxia, all of these conditions. We're not talking about cures. We're talking about improving. We're talking about quality of life, improving that quality of life for that student. And the programme doesn't work for everybody, or you may only see very, very subtle improvements. We can't guarantee that a particular student is going to respond in the way that we would like them to respond. We can't guarantee that. And a lot of it also depends on the parents. This is often a home-based programme, and parents like yourself who are totally dedicated to their children, and most of the parents who come to me, I'm in awe of them because they are just absolutely amazing. All they want is the best for their children. They want to do whatever they can to improve the lives and the quality of life for their children, and they'll do anything that they possibly can. And because Fast Forward does require quite a commitment from the parent. Quite often they will have to sit with the child, coach them, put in the interventions that I'm recommending should it be needed. And so it does require a time commitment from the parents. Generally, I find that most parents have no problem in finding that time, even though it might be difficult within because children these days tend to be so busy, so many things outside school, not just at school, but they've got so many other things going on as well. And,
absolutely.
But this is a programme that you only do once. You don't, once you've done particularly the 2 foundational modules, you may not need any other extra help. You may not need to do the reading series that comes with Fast Word. You may not need to do Reading Assistant. So it is just a one-off programme. So it's well worth a parent allocating the time and the funds just for a few months, just get this done and dusted, and then allow the child to just blossom.
And the reason why I wanted to do this call with you is because I am one of those parents who, really struggle to find the time. So I basically got his dad to do it with him. That was his role. I delegated.
That's it.
Computer. Exactly. And his dad sits at the computer all day long. They've got iPads. It's very good bonding time. I found that I was able to do that. But also in those 3 months that we used the programme, we saw changes beyond belief. Even now, thinking about how far my son has come from using
Yes.
these programs. And I would say that 99% of the reason why he is the child he is because of this program. This program
Yes.
created so many connections. It allowed me to understand what he didn't know. Like, I didn't know that he didn't know what between was. Like, we'd
Yes.
never
Yes.
discussed it, but when we
No.
started doing the program and between, and he started to opposite, underneath, once he started to understand all those words, his processing speed of language started to improve.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
he could
yeah.
communicate better with me and the
Yes.
world. And then his level of
Yes.
confidence went up, and
That's
his
it.
eyes started
Yes.
to light up. It was the best way I can explain it for him is that this is what I think as an observer is all his life up until fast forward. It was like foghorns going off constantly, and him trying to
Yes.
hear and do things in that noise. But the minute
Yes.
he
Yes.
engaged in fast forward, the sound started to dimmer, and he could hear,
Yes.
and he could focus,
Yes.
and he could enjoy being
Yes.
comfortable in his own skin and in his environment. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant program. I love it.
Yes. Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. And it's just typical of the sort of thing that I do hear regularly from my clients. They'll say, you know, my child, quite often we'll see improvements within a couple of weeks of starting the program. Oh gosh, you know, now he can talk to me without any problem. He's talking to his sister that he never used to talk to before, and all little things like this. And as I say, if we could also come, depending on the difficulties of the individual student, if we may sometimes need to put in like the listening program, that in itself can be totally life-changing, because it helps a child, particularly if they've had any ear infections, as you know, as a youngster, as a toddler, or any ear infections at all, they will have been in a fishbowl. And whilst at a very, very critical time when they are learning language and they're trying to tune in to the language around them. But they're in this fishbowl, you see, because of the blocked up ears. And that then has a knock-on effect. Their brain hasn't tuned in to sounds as they should have done. So they mishear words, they misinterpret things, they can't understand what's going on around them. They may be struggling to hear with background noise, which is a big issue in schools because classrooms can be very noisy. So we can improve on all of these, and it means that a child can suddenly start focusing, like you say, suddenly start learning, suddenly start communicating better. And that, like you say, has a whole impact on their whole life. You see them blossom, you see them smiling, and so it goes on. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And could you tell me and tell anyone listening about your son and how this has changed your son's life?
Yes. Well, my son, he wouldn't ever have been described as having very, very severe difficulties, but certainly he was sort of looked as though he was on the autistic spectrum. He wasn't focusing. He was finding it very difficult to do anything at school. And his literacy was way, way behind. And his teachers couldn't see, you know, they couldn't see. I knew that he was innately very intelligent, but his teachers couldn't see that. And I first started off with a listening program with him and a movement program. And I didn't tell the school that I was doing this. So I started at the Easter. And then when I got his report at the summer, it said in that report, John has made very, very good progress this year, especially since Easter. So I thought, yes, we know why. And it was only later, because we'll come on to my daughter if you like as well. It was only later because the Fast Forward programme had been recommended for my daughter by Great Ormond Street Hospital for her auditory processing difficulties. And we thought at the time, well, we might as well put John on the programme as well. And
how old is John at this time?
He would have been 8, something like that, 8 or 9 by this time. And yes, we moved him to another school. We moved into a private school where the class sizes were much smaller. So he was already benefiting from that. but still struggling even there. And he did fast forward, and that was it. Just never ever looked back. And even the school said, you know, is this, you know, what have you done? You know, because now he doesn't need any extra help. And then his writing, you know, this was a child who couldn't write, who couldn't express himself on paper. And now, you know, he's now got first class honours degree in geography. He's got a master's in renewable energy, moving on to other things in life now. And just even he says now how much he benefited from Fast Forward.
Amazing. And then
that was just amazing.
Tell us about your daughter. Is she younger or older?
The daughter, she's a bit younger. There's only 14 months between them, so she's only 14 months younger. But her difficulties were far, far more severe, and her diagnosis was severe verbal dyspraxia. So she was totally unable to speak, and at 3 was in a preschool language unit. She was taught sign language to help her communicate while the speech therapy took effect, if you like, and she could start to speak. But also within that, we later identified that she had an auditory processing disorder, which was identified by Great Ormond Street. And also the speech therapists, you know, they recognised that her processing speed was very, very, very slow. So you'd speak to her and, you know, 10 seconds later, you know, she might reply. So you'd ask her a question, but you'd have to physically sit and wait for the reply.
Wow, that involves some patience.
Yes, it took her that long to process verbal information. Now, visual information was completely different. She could process that straight away. But verbal information, it took her, you know, 10 seconds.
So how would a parent recognise that then for their child? Because for me, when I ask my children a question and I've learned, if they don't answer, I ask them again. But I realise that's quite annoying.
Yes.
And I've learned to wait now, and Quincy does take a bit longer to respond, and his brother.
Yes.
But how does a parent know?
Well, I think, like you have, it's trial and error, really. It's trial, but you've got to sit back and think, actually, I'm going to sit and wait. And you've got to have that patience, and that time, perhaps just one particular time, you might say, right, I'm going to ask them a question or give an instruction, and I'm just going to sit and wait to see what happens. I'm not going to keep saying. That's what you do, isn't it? You keep saying, well, you keep prompting them, you keep saying, well, and then you might even get a little bit annoyed and say, for goodness sake, you know, why can't you reply, or why can't you do it? But then when you sort of think, well, hang on, I'm just going to sit and see what happens, and then count the seconds. And then you'll know then how long it is taking your child to process what you're saying.
Wow. I think everyone listening should try that with their children, just to see how long it is. Because that could be, I hear a lot, I listen to a lot of people's conversations because I'm always interested in whatever people are talking about, people I don't know.
Yes.
And I heard a mum saying the other day in Starbucks to her friend that her son doesn't listen. And I thought, so I started listening to what she said, and she was like, I'll tell him to go upstairs and get his shoes and his coat, and he'll come back down with like one shoe, or no coat, no shoes, and like a toy. And she goes, he doesn't listen. And I was thinking, I'm sure he's not processing, you're giving him too many instructions, but I didn't want to butt in because it's none of my business. But maybe there are lots of parents out there who aren't aware of this thing called auditory processing disorder. Yes. Is that what it's called?
Yes. Well, yes, that is a particular disorder. You can have auditory processing difficulties, but not actually have auditory processing disorder. So that is a very specific condition that is diagnosed. But you can still have auditory processing difficulties, and one of them is the ability to follow complex instructions, and that's something we work on extensively in Fast Forward. What you're just talking about, where parents are saying, well, he's not listening, I send him upstairs for X, Y, and Z, and he only comes down with Z. What could be interesting is that if that parent then stops and thinks, I've asked him to do X, Y, and Z. What has he actually come back with? Has he come back with X? Has he come back with Y? Or has he come back with Z? And then you'll find out which bit of that conversation he's actually processed. He might only have processed the first part of the sentence.
How common is this difficulty?
It is surprisingly common. I hear this an awful lot from parents. You know, the processing speed is different to the auditory memory. So, you know, and where the two are affected, so the auditory memory will be low and the processing speed very, very slow, then the child is hardly going to be able to remember even the first part of the instruction, never mind the rest of it. But we improve on all of those in Fast Forward. But I think the chances that the child is not listening is probably completely wrong, and the child is trying very, very hard to listen to the instruction, but is only, able to process either the first bit or even the last bit, and not miss out the bit in the middle. It can be heartbreaking.
It's very sad.
Parents don't know. You don't know unless you know about these things. You're not going to think, well, actually, he's got a processing speed problem unless you've got that knowledge to start with.
And true. And do you know what? That just made me think, quite a lot of parents don't think that I don't know how to explain it. There are parents who think they're just making that up because they want an excuse for why their child's not listening. And there's other parents who might just go and try and find any label but I think ultimately for children are genuinely good and lovely and pure and beautiful. And if they're struggling, there always will be something neurological. I always think there is. No one chooses not to listen. Good.
I couldn't agree more with that, Ife. I really couldn't. And it does upset me when children are labelled as naughty, when in actual fact, well, hang on a minute, there's a reason for that behaviour. And I did once work with a pupil referral unit, and obviously a lot of children in there had been sent there because their behaviour in school or whatever, or they weren't attending school or whatever it was. So they had been sent to this PRU. And, once they were on Fast Forward, you could really hone in then on the difficulties that these children had. They weren't being naughty. They were just, nobody ever had even thought that they might have problems with their speed of processing or other things that Fast Forward were actually identifying. I completely agree with you.
Wow.
I see it. As children get older and a lot of these children who get into trouble, again, there's often an underlying neurological difference there that could be helped.
Brilliant.
It might be.
So really don't assume then that give them the benefit of the doubt and try to be detective and find out what is the root cause of this behaviour rather than just assuming that they're not very nice or good children, because most children majority of children are lovely and they're just trying to mask their difficulties. So I moved the conversation over, but so your daughter, so let's carry on with your daughter. So she was to Great Ormond Street, suggested that she goes onto this programme. You thought, I'll put my son on it too. He then has gone on and become a very successful chappie with his masters and all of this. Now your daughter, what happened with her because she was more severe?
That's when we could really see how difficult it was for her to process sounds once she got onto the programme. The one exercise, it's called Sky Gym now. It wasn't called Sky Gym then because this is a long time ago. It was called Circus Sequence then. And, she found that impossible. Absolutely, totally impossible. And but we worked hard. We put in the interventions that had been recommended, and gradually with she needed a lot of help. She needed a lot of encouragement, because it's very, very, very disheartening when you keep getting something wrong. I just kept encouraging her, kept giving her lots of rewards and lots of help and lots of, in terms of the interventions. And this is the amazing thing about Fast Forward, is it's training, it's building up new neural connections in the brain. And it could take a long time to build up those neural connections. But then suddenly, bang, one day, I can do this bit. and then she'll move on a bit, and then hit another plateau, and then do more sessions, weeks or whatever it was, or months even at that session and level, and then up again, another one. And that was totally life-changing for her. Had a huge, huge impact on her speech and on her language. And she went up over 20 points in one of the assessments that the speech therapist did. It's called the KELF. And she was on the first centile. She went up to, I think it was the 23rd or the 24th centile, which is within the normal range.
Wow. So from doing that program, she started very below and ended up jumping and getting on average with everybody else. So does she speak now?
Oh, yes. Yes, you wouldn't know now. Wouldn't know there was any problems at all.
She's just got a normal life?
Yes. Yes, it's not, she's got a completely normal life. I mean, there's obviously, she's not able to get her English GCSE, but we don't worry about little things like that. She's able to do a portfolio-based qualification. She's absolutely brilliant at that. And she writes poetry, she writes articles as well.
They do. And do you know why I think that is? Can I tell you, I've been thinking about it a lot. Because I know I'm the kind of person in life that will try everything, and I understand it won't work the first time, so I try everything 5 times until I go, okay, it doesn't work. So I'm that person anyway. But this is what I think happens, and I'll just give you my take on it. You find out, if we're talking about autism for now, and maybe dyslexia and some other diagnosed needs, when you find out your child has autism, this is how it was told to me. He was 2 years old. We went to the hospital with the psychologist, the paediatrician, the educational psychologist, the speech and language person, all of these people who have gone to school and done very well and are respected doctors, psychologists. You're in a room with them, and you get told that your child has autism. And then we were then told, we're not really sure how or why, because it's still very new and we're still trying to learn about it. But here are some flyers for the National Autistic Society and some other local charities. Off you go. But just so you know, this is something that you cannot cure. It's going to be with them for the rest of their lives. It's going to be a challenge. It's very likely they're not going to live a normal life. They're going to be dependent on you for the rest of their lives. And there is really nothing else we can do here as a hospital to help you. Bye-bye. So then you go online and you start reading up on stuff, and then you find loads of horrible stories, and you read loads of people's terrible stories about their autistic children. And then I didn't even know what the word autistic was when I was like, what is this? Thinking all these things. Then you decide to sign up to go to some of these courses and meet other parents. And the first course you go to is how to restrain your child. So then you're learning how to restrain your child, how to cope with them banging their head on the floor, how to teach them to speak, how to, when they get into adolescence. So then you're like, oh my gosh. And then you start hanging around with other people who are like, oh my gosh. And the one thing that you remember is what the doctors told you. This is a lifelong, challenging disability, and there is no cure. So then I come along, and you come along and go, we have a solution. We can help your children process information. We can help them with communication. We can help. We know how to build their self-esteem. And then parents go, no way, don't listen to them. You're going to end up disappointed because the doctors, the specialists, the people told us this is not going to change. It's fixed. But everything you do is all about neuroplasticity. And that means that it's not fixed. It means the brain can change. Right. So,
exactly. Well, you just look at people who have a stroke. Even older people who have a stroke, they can recover an awful lot of their functions. Now that illustrates just how plastic the brain is. And even at a very sort of mature age, people can still retrain their brain to speak, to eat, and all these sorts of things. So it's the idea of brain plasticity. I mean, it's normal. It's who we are. We're always learning all the time. We're always creating new neural connections. We're always changing. And the idea that I've come across this, it was the same with my daughter, that's it, basically, just written off. Yeah, she's writing poetry, yes, and she acts and she sings.
She's happy.
She's happy, that's right. That's right. I mean, obviously her academic life is not on the same level as her brothers, but that doesn't matter, because if we'd have left her without doing the programme, then she would have been in a special school, and it would have been, there would have been no progress whatsoever, or hardly any.
Maybe in assisted living?
Yes, most likely. Yes, because she's 21 now.
Wow. So you've seen firsthand, for having two children who are completely different needs in general, yes. You've seen firsthand how much of an impact this has had on them.
That's right. That's right.
And I've seen firsthand, and my son's only 8, and we've only done it for just under a year.
Yes, so, I mean, you haven't completed all the modules by any means. There's a long way to go.
Exactly.
And so where your son will end up, by the time he's finished, who knows? We can't say. But yes, I do think that a lot of people find it difficult to believe.
And that's
sorry?
It's so painful.
It is. Can't accept that.
And do you think that the thing is why people don't fully commit to doing this fast forward is because of disappointment that it's another thing that's not going to work?
There may very well be an element of that. I think there's also an element of when it becomes difficult for their child. Some parents can't see beyond that, and they can't see that, we need to help my child get through this, and they'll say, oh, well, they'll never be able to do it. And I'll be saying, well, look, just keep going. You never know. We can't say never. Never doesn't exist. And then within a few weeks, bang, suddenly, oh, he's just moved up. There you go, you see. And but some parents can't get beyond that. There's no doubt about that.
So they've got a fixed mindset, really.
Yes. And yes, they have. And it's the same with some schools. Once the child hits what appears to be a brick wall, they'll say, right, well, we can't do any more. But actually, hang on a minute, we need to just keep going. It's about, like I said right at the beginning, that the success of a student in fast work can depend as much on the parent or the person who's coaching them as the child themselves. As long as that coach is totally committed to the programme, they will do whatever they can to get that student over the difficulty that they might have.
Absolutely. You have to believe in it. And to wrap up, Mary, one of the things that I think is amazing about you that we should all be very lucky to have, we have spoken about how important it is to have a parent supporting the child. And lots of parents, we're working, we're busy, we've most probably got other children. But what you do, which I think is a great thing, is once you buy the logins and the license for your child, you can pass them over to the school. And you are wonderful. You speak to the school. You explain to them, you empower the TA or whoever it is going to be working with your child. And parents, it's something you can actually delegate. You could say, they're at school 6 hours a day. You can get this program, pay for it, say to the school, I've paid for it. You don't need to spend any money. We're not asking you for any money. I've paid for it. Here's their logins. Speak to Mary. She'll tell you about it. Add it in their day.
The child needs to work on the programme 5 days a week. So it is quite possible to do a blend, because it's cloud-based, you can do a blended programme. So if you can work weekends on the programme, but also you don't have to delegate all of those 5 days to school. It may be that school only does 2 days a week, but that is enough.
But what if you want the school to do it all?
Oh yeah, the school can do it all. Yes, that's not a problem. But what I'm trying to say is that, it's so flexible. You can either do it all yourself as parents at home. You can split the time between yourself and school, as long as school are prepared to put, because it's half an hour that they have to find one-to-one, or whether the school can do it 5 days a week. And that's quite possible. And I've worked with many schools where that has happened, and they've put it in and worked with a child. I've been in continuous contact with them and helped them coach that child through the programme, and it's all worked very, very well. So yes, you know, as parents, particularly if you're very, very busy as parents, which an awful lot of parents are, then it's worth that conversation with school to say, you know, we're paying for it, however, could you implement it at school? And if a child has an EHCP, it's quite possible they might have a TA one-to-one, they might be taken out of class, you know, that half an hour of that time could be used on Fast Forward. And it can be very, very enlightening to teachers as well, because we identify areas of difficulty that won't have been tested before. They won't realise that perhaps they can't actually process a particular phoneme pair, or some language that they don't understand, like you mentioned earlier, particular words that they may not have the full meaning of. So it can be very, very, you know, brilliant all round, really. It's
brilliant. It really is. So anyone watching, please go and have a look at Mary's website. Go and have a look at Smart Processing. So go and have a look at smartprocessing.co.uk. Have a look at all the different programs. You can go on Messenger and message Mary, and it's instant.
It's on the website. Just click the messenger button on the website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking to me.
That's a pleasure. Thank you, Biffy.
Oh, please let me know how you get on, because I'm hoping that parents are going, do you know what, let me look into this. It's a new year, it's 2020. I want to help my child with something that's proven and working mainly on science-based learning.
The sooner you get this in place, particularly if their children are sort of within a year or a couple of years of moving up to senior school, then, you know, now is the time to do it, before they actually hit senior school and they hit all those extra workloads that will be coming.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
That's a pleasure. Thank you, Effie.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, and you. Bye-bye.
Bye.